and welcome to my channel, Duck Potatoes World. Today we are going to be attaching a tassel to the Happy and Gnome hat by Katie Brohard. So first you're going to need your completed hat. You will need the yarn that you plan to use for your tassel. A small button. The size of the button will vary, but you want it to be no bigger than the end of your, the point of your hat. If you want to have beads on it, you might want a few beads. If you have beads, you'll need a way to string those beads. And you're going to need a needle that is thin enough to thread through your buttonholes. You're also going to need something to wrap your tassel around. For that, I will be using a book that is about 6 inches from spine to pages. Now, the first thing we're going to do is take the yarn that we want to make our tassel out of and cut off a length about a foot, maybe a little less, and set that aside for later. Then we're going to take the rest of the yarn, and this is what we're going to use to make the tassel out of. We're going to take this book, and you're going to turn it so that the spine is pointed down. Then you will hold your yarn, beginning with the end of the yarn next to the spine, and you're just going to wrap it as many times as you want around the book. So the more times that you wrap it, the thicker, of course, your tassel is going to be. So if you want a really full tassel, you will want to wrap it a few more times. I think I wrapped my first Happy and Gnome tassel around like 20 times. I didn't have very much yarn. That was like all the yarn I had. This one I may do a little bit more than that. I don't plan to hold mohair with this. If you have a two-tone hat, you can use yarn from both colors if you want. But you don't have to, but you could. You would just wrap, I don't know where the end of this yarn is at. There it is. You would just wrap them together. So, you could use 2 colors if you wanted a little bit of the red in there. I'm going to put a few red strands in it, but not a whole lot. I mostly want it to be gray, so I just wanted a little bit of red in there. Red out. Keep going with the gray, just until you think you don't really need to count, unless you're planning to make 2 tassels and you want them to be exactly the same, or you just want to know. You don't really need to count. You just keep going till it looks good to you. That looks good to me. And then you can cut your yarn. So now I have this situation going on. And what I want to do is thread that strip I cut off earlier and set aside. I'm going to get that back out. And I'm going to thread it into my needle. Now my needle is kind of thinner than a tapestry needle I would normally use, because remember, it had to be thin enough to go through my button. But I'm going to take it and I am going to slide it into this little groove on the book spine, like so. And this is how I'm going to tie off the top of my tassel, and I'm going to leave these long ends to be the ties for the tassel. So tie it nice and tight, as tight as I can. Get a good double knot or whatever kind of knot you know how to do. You want that to be pretty secure, because that's the top of your tassel. Now, from here, we're going to come back up into the page end of the book, and we're going to cut the yarn right down the middle. And now you can see we have a lovely tassel. So you want to pick a strand that's kind of deep down in the middle of the tassel. And just sort of pull it out, and we're going to use that to wrap around the head of the tassel. And you can use your needle again, because we're just going to kind of tie it off and tuck it deep inside, and if I think it needs more, I can pull another one out from inside and wrap another one around as well. So here I got it wrapped around. I'm going to thread. I'm going to tie a knot by threading this through a layer here, just one, and just making a little knot to hold it secure. Get my needle out of the way here. See if you can see how I did that there. Just made a little like slip knot kind of, and then I'm just going to tuck this end down inside the rest of the tassel here, kind of hide it. And I'm going to do that again because I want a little bit of a thicker wrap around the head of my tassel. In fact, what I may do is go ahead and cut another piece of my red yarn here, because I think I want that to be red. And I don't really want to tie a knot, I just want to wrap it. Wrapping it, wrapping it, wrapping it. Get my needle back on here, and I'm just going to tuck it back inside the head of the tassel. I just do not want a thread on my needle, does it? There it goes. Poke it down in there and pull through. Do the same thing with the other side. There are probably many other ways to make a tassel. You can, of course, make your tassel any way you want. Or if you don't want a tassel at all, you don't have to have one. You are welcome to leave your hat without a tassel if you prefer. But I like the tassel, so that is how I did mine. Now, once you have your tassel made and you are happy with it, there's a couple of little kind of housekeeping things. If you have two-tone yarn and you can see it breaking through and you don't like it, you might need to just kind of reposition some of your threads, fuss with them a little. We want to even our ends, so I just used the same book I used to make the tassel, and I just kind of gently brush it straight out so everything's kind of lying as straight as I can get it. And I line it up on the edge of this book. And I just cut with pretty sharp scissors. It's easy. If you have dull scissors, this is going to be harder. Oop, I missed it. But you can see that tidied up my end really nicely there. I don't have any stragglers. And then you're wondering what I'm going to do with those beads. Those beads are going to be used to kind of help hide that little knot that my ties have. So I'm going to take all three of these beads and my bead threader, dental floss threader, If you're using a thicker yarn, this might be a little harder, but you can usually get one bead onto both strands of yarn. Fortunately, my beads are cooperative tonight, and I'm not having too much trouble. Tried to do this once, and the bead just did not want to go. But there we are. And you just bring your beads down here. They kind of hide some of the ugliness of that knot. Give it a little tug if it needs it. Tighten it up. All right, now I'm going to take my hat and I'll take my tassel and I'm going to separate out these two ties, and I'm going to just pull them through to the inside of the cat. I'm not really the inside of the hat. I'm not really sewing anything. I just want to get the ties onto the inside of the hat from the point. And I'm going to do this separately because we're going to use these ties to tie it on with the button that we've got for stability purposes for our tassel. This yarn does not want to thread for me this time. Too easy of a time the first two times. Let's see here. Go on. Usually I can kind of pinch it like this and it will do. There we go. We got it. Okay. So you get one threaded on there and you're just going to go into the point of your hat. Put your hand in the hat and pull the needle on through. All right, then we're going to do the same thing here on the other side. I'm going to go in at a slightly different spot so you can see where that thread's going in. I'm going to come in over here kind of across from it. So you can see they're not totally side by side. There's a little space. Now I have both threads from my tassel, both ties, on the inside of my hat. I'm going to turn my hat wrong side out. At this point, I need my button. And I'm going to thread my tie through one of my buttonholes. Shouldn't have pulled that off the needle, huh? Okay. So there we go, through one of the buttonholes. Now I'm going to pull the other tie through the other buttonhole. There's no need to sew the button on for this method because at this point I'm just going to tie a nice bow, and the tassel ties are going to hold the button in place. The button's going to give the tassel a little stability. And if I need to wash my hat and I don't want to wash the tassel, I'll be able to take it off. Now, if you're going to use a pom-pom or something with an elastic loop that you're going to pull through, then you would need to sew your button on separately. But there we go. Now I have a tassel for my hat.